vulnerability has a language.
Hmm.
And it is a language that those that have gone through
Yeah.
things that have been very difficult to deal with can relate to. Because it's very difficult to open yourself up to the public, especially nowadays, woman of God, where someone
Yeah.
can be going through an ordeal. Instead of people going to help, they take out their phones and begin to record.
Oh,
It's a TikTok.
it's so bad.
It's
Someone
absolutely
someone is having a seizure on the road or something. And first of all, you're thinking, how can I save the life? But people are taking out their phone and they're recording.
exactly. Exactly. It's like, where has our morality gone? Just
Yeah.
basic human decency, is very, very hard to come by. And so when you think about the way society is now, it's very difficult for people to embrace this concept of vulnerability. But having said that, in their heart of hearts, when people are going through something, they are longing to be vulnerable to someone that can assure them that they will
Mm.
be covered.
Yeah.
And when we talk about why are you being vulnerable, I think vulnerability goes hand in hand with authenticity. You can never
Yeah,
be
it
authentic
does.
without being vulnerable. And so, over the years, I've learned that I speak better. The language of vulnerability speaks better to the
Mm.
people that God has called me to than the
Yeah.
language of even teaching and training. Because, I'm a coach, teacher, trainer,
Yeah.
and you can train people and just give them knowledge. But when you apply yourself and open yourself up and say, look, guys, this is what I've gone through
Yeah.
as well. And the way you struggle is the way I struggle. But this is how I manage to actually hold myself up and keep going and
Mm.
continue being a blessing. So vulnerability has been shunned because people are living in a society, women of God, of keeping up appearances.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 110 of the Unleash and Thrive podcast. I'm so excited. As always, I always tell you, I always have phenomenal guests in the house. I have somebody in the house today. We've been wanting to do this for a while, but we're here today. I have Lady Dee. I'm going to call her Pastor Diana. I'm so excited. I want to welcome you specially to this podcast. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so, so much. I call you a powerhouse. I call you a powerhouse. And, the reason is you just have this unique capacity to carry and to, when you call yourself the purpose midwife, it's not just a name. It's something that is made manifest through you. And so you carry so much power, and you house it so gracefully. And for
Mm.
me, I've been looking forward to this. And it's such a great honor to be on this talk. And I am looking forward to just engaging and just seeing what God is going to do. Thank you so much
Praise
for
God.
having me.
Thank you for being here. So I'm going to read your bio. We're having the Unstoppable Woman series. And this is, last week I actually had the episode I had last week was with the lady. She was talking about how she leveraged on resilience. And I'm like, resilience is so big. It's such a big topic. And I'm so excited that today we're going to be sharing from your book. I'm excited because we're going to be sharing the wisdom keys from that book. Some wisdom keys, we're not going to share all because we want people to go and get the book if you haven't gotten the book. So, but we're going to be looking into that a little bit. But I want to read your bio before we get into our conversation. So, if you're listening, if you're watching, I want to encourage you, please grab your friend. You don't want to listen to this alone, you don't want to watch this alone because this is going to bless you. So, go grab a friend. You can grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, some water, some popcorn if you want, and then join us in this conversation. So, Diana Fumbilwa is a credentialed minister under the New Life Churches of New Zealand. She is co-leader of El Shaddai Worship Center in Auckland, New Zealand, where she partners with her husband, Reverend Friday, Fumbilwa, where as visionary founder and pastor. Originally from Zambia, Diana migrated to New Zealand in 2001. Her transitional experiences and biblical principles have been a solid foundation from which she teaches others to be resilient in challenging times. She has been helping women develop their God given giftings through empowerment conferences since 2008. Wow, that's a long time. Diana's leadership and biblical counseling experience spans 18 years, culminating in mentoring, coaching, and leadership development in recent years. She's the founder of Transcend Life Coaching and Leadership Development, where she delivers transformational coaching and training. A compelling speaker, Diana has taught on resilience in conferences in Australia, New Zealand, Zambia, and the USA. Once again, we want to welcome you to this episode. Okay, so I always tell people, I said, now I've read that bio, and I now want to ask you informally, who would you, I know as a coach, I know you're called Lady D, so I'm going to call you Lady D. Who would you say Lady D is informally beyond the bio?
Wow, beyond the bio, and that's the part of Lady D that I really want to serve today, and
Mm,
that's the part of me that I love to serve to people. I am just a passionate follower of Jesus Christ. I think that
mm,
is at the core of who I am. And everything I do, whether it's for fun or for educational purposes, whether it's in writing, I always wanted to be rooted and centered on Christ Jesus. So I'm a passionate follower of Jesus Christ. But also, I am, for some of you that don't know, I wear many hats. I am also an orthopedics and plastic surgical nurse. So I work in the secular world, and I love my job because it helps me interact with a lot of people from all walks of life. And because I work in a private hospital, I meet people that are from everywhere, literally.
mm.
So that gives me an opportunity to connect with people. So I love just making a difference in people's lives, whether it's professionally, spiritually, or, on a friendship level. So that's me
Oh, wow.
outside my bio.
I love that. I love the way you just brought everything together. That was beautiful. And I'm going to ask you another question. Can you share two fun facts about yourself? That's like I think that's my most enjoyable question I often ask of this.
I love that because, I have a friend that always asks me, what did you do for fun today? And, I've realized how important it is to actually have a fun side to you.
Mm,
Otherwise, life in itself already has a lot of negative, things
right.
happening. You
Yep.
turn on the TV, there's negative news. So,
Mm,
what is the fun fact about me? Oh, I'm the only female member of my family.
mm.
So I grew up as the only girl in the family, and we were six. So
Wow.
from a family of six, I am the only girl, and I think something about me is that I've always grown up protected by my brothers.
Mm,
Growing up. And also, I think on the other hand, that trained me to actually learn how to stand up for what I believe. And I think it's interesting to know that within me is like the strong side and also the soft side. Another thing I think that I would call as a fan fact is like I am like I said, I'm very creative. My mind is like a workshop, and so I love creating things. I love crafts. I love nature. I'm
Mm.
a person that just loves to take a walk at the beach. I like to walk through the woods. That's my fun, my way
You
of
like
having fun.
adventure?
I'll run across the beach as well. I love the beach. I will run from one end of the beach to the other, and just that fresh air, is really great. And that's how I have fun.
Oh wow, I love that. I can kind of identify what you're saying because I have my mom actually was the only girl in her family growing up. She had three brothers, and she was
Mm.
pampered like all through. And then I have three sons, and my daughter is the last one. And I see
Oh,
the way they treat her. So
yeah.
kind of have an idea of being the only girl. But you're so right because I remember one of the no, I think one of the teachers said to us at school when she said, "Oh, her name is Divine." She said, she's very strong. She's assertive. She's confident. She is soft, but
Yeah.
you can't cheat her. I said no. I said because even at home she's like that. So like when you grow up with boys, I guess that's something that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And you kind of automatically, because when you're growing up with siblings, much as they are protective of you, there are times when you differ. Okay.
Mm,
So when you differ, you learn to stand
yeah,
up for yourself. And I think
yeah,
that's the kind of assertiveness that you
yeah.
grow up with.
Mm,
And I think that's what has pushed me into leadership.
mm,
Even growing up, I was either the monitor of the class, I was a
mm,
prefect at school, I was just, those leadership qualities
yeah,
kind of merge into your ability to be assertive. And
yeah.
when you're an assertive person, you are a good advocate for others. And
Mm,
so
mm,
yeah, those qualities are really good to have. And I thank God that I grew up like that.
mm. Wow, wow. It's interesting how things are the way we grow up really does shape us as we get older, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
awesome. Thanks for that. So we're going to get into our conversation. So our topic today really is taken from the subtitle of your book, Bounce Back Stronger. But the
Mm.
subtitle is Wisdom Keys for Resilience in Times of Setback. I know, and I remember from the very first time I saw that you wrote that book a couple of years ago. I have always wondered, which has always been in my heart. Why did you write that? Like, what led you to write that book?
Mm. Very important question, And when I wrote that book, actually, I didn't think of why am I writing it? I just
Mm,
began to write it, and I understood the why when I was midway writing it. And I thought, okay. But before I explain that, I think it's important, woman of God, to understand that we need wisdom to be resilient.
mm.
And that's why I have the wisdom keys.
Okay, wisdom
Without
keys.
wisdom, resilience will be an uphill battle. And so in training others to be resilient, I think I found myself in my role, in my pastoral work. I found myself talking to a lot of people that were going through setbacks. And for
Mm,
me, it was mainly the young adults. And you know how they would go through their own unique challenges. And I know you are a pastor yourself, you're a pastor's wife, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I would sit with people and talk and counsel them on end to the 2 a.m.s in the morning. And like I said, I'm a nurse. So I would be going to work in the morning and I would finish this session 2 a.m. because this is a life and death issue. This
mm,
person is facing a very, challenging setback. And so I would go through that. And then next day it would be another one. And then in 2 days' time and the next week. So I found myself wearing myself out.
yeah.
And one day a lady said to me, "Oh my goodness, you have so much wisdom. Why
Mm,
don't you put this in a book?"
wow.
And then the idea was planted in my mind, and I thought, so how do I write a book? Because I never set off to become an author, and I'm sure it's true for
Mm,
many people. So with that in mind, because of the passion I have to continue helping people, and I felt I would reach so many people rather than sitting with one
yeah.
person for
Yeah.
4 hours,
You're
I
so
just thought,
right.
okay, God, yeah. I went back to God and I said, God, help me put this into words. And that's how I started writing. And I
Wow.
only had the title when I was halfway through the book as well. I was just writing wisdom keys, and I thought these are keys that will help people bounce back
Hmm.
stronger from their setbacks. Yeah. So that's how my book was born.
Oh, wow. That's really
Yeah.
interesting because most people write a book based on, so it wouldn't really have been that it was particularly your life situation that brought about the book. It's more because of the role that you had, or that you have as a pastor dealing with other people.
It was that coupled with my own
Mm,
experiences, because
okay.
if you read my book, you will see that I feature quite a lot in that. Because let's be honest, the things that people come to us for,
Mm,
to ask for solutions for, we go through them
yeah.
in our own
Yeah.
version. And so I wanted to take these things that I was teaching others
Mm,
and make them relatable by putting myself in their shoes and saying to them, look, I'm just like you. Much as you're
yeah.
going through the setback, a lot of people have gone through the same, and here is
Mm,
how I have gone out of my own setbacks. And so the trigger was the fact that I wanted to help people, but eventually I realized that I am the book that people would like to read and
yeah.
know that these wisdom keys that I'm giving them are not just things that I've read in a book. I have used them, and I've had my own setbacks and experienced how God can, help somebody come from, worse to becoming someone that is so useful in society and bringing life to others. So it was a combination of
Okay.
my work helping people, but
Yeah.
also feeling the need to share my own setbacks. I want to tell you, I am a very private person. And writing that book for me was
Mm,
God saying, it's time to be vulnerable. It's
mm,
time to show people that this, this kind of thing can happen to anyone.
yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
Very important. Very important. Because when you teach with your life, woman of God, you know
Yeah.
that there's
Yeah.
authenticity there. And
Definitely.
authenticity is what speaks louder than education and knowledge.
Yeah. I
Mm.
was I almost think like you were in my mind because I was just gonna ask you that how important, is it for us to be vulnerable, even while sharing? Because sometimes I remember a few people have reached out to me and said to me, why do you share some of the things that you share? Like, don't you feel like it's a bit too much? Why are you that vulnerable? And I remember like, and one of the examples would have been maybe my suicide attempt stories that I share. And people said to me, why do you share them? I said, because I remember God said to me, even if it's going to help one person,
Yeah.
it's enough,
Yeah.
it's worth it. If it's going to save
Mm.
one person, it really is worth sharing.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand what you're saying when you're saying, when we teach with our life, then you're telling people, I'm not speaking at you, but I really just understand, where you're coming from.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. And in my book, I talk about pain, and pain having a language. Um, Pain has a way of talking to us
Mm,
and
mm,
talking through us. And in the same way, vulnerability has a language.
mm,
And it is a language that those that have gone through
yeah.
things that have been very difficult to deal with can relate to. Because it's very difficult to open yourself up to the public, especially nowadays, woman of God, where someone
Yeah.
can be going through an ordeal. Instead of people going to help, they take out their phones and begin to record.
Oh,
It's a TikTok.
it's so
It's
bad.
it's
Someone
absolutely.
someone is having a seizure on the road or something. And first of all, you're thinking, how can I save the life? But people are taking out their phone and they're recording.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, where has our morality gone? Just
Yeah.
basic human decency, is
Yeah.
very, very hard to come by. And so when you think about the way society is now, it's very difficult for people to embrace this concept of vulnerability. But having said that, in their heart of hearts, when people are going through something, they are longing to be vulnerable to someone that can assure them that they will
Mm.
be covered.
Yeah.
And and you know, when we talk about why are you being vulnerable, I think vulnerability goes hand in hand with authenticity. You can never be
Yeah, it
authentic
does.
without being vulnerable. And so, you know, over the years, I've learned that I speak better. You know, the language of vulnerability speaks better to the people
Mm.
that God has called me to than the
Yeah.
language of even teaching and training. Because, you know, I'm a coach, teacher, trainer,
Yeah.
and you can train people and just give them knowledge. But when you apply yourself and open yourself up, and say, look, guys, this is what I've gone through
Yeah.
as well. And the way you struggle is the way I struggle, but this is how I manage to actually hold myself up and keep going and continue
Mm.
being a blessing. So vulnerability has been shunned because people
Mm.
are living in a society, women of God, of keeping up appearances. And so
Mm.
for as long as they can serve that image, that's all that matters at all costs. And so we need to advocate, I think, for vulnerability, especially in people that are called to speak in the lives of others. I think
Yeah.
it's a very important quality to have.
Mm.
It is.
Wow. That is so true. Wow. I'm
Mhm.
pondering even as you're speaking. Okay, I'm gonna go back
Yeah.
into wisdom, which is like the bane of our discussion today. So just like we know, the world we live in today is so different. So you talking about wisdom, Kizzy are talking about the wisdom of God. And I want
Yes.
us to just look at it. What is the difference when somebody says, I want to be resilient, but I have my own way of dealing with stuff? I want us to kind of talk about what is the difference between using wisdom keys, as in using the wisdom of God to handle those situations versus using the world's way of, rather, let me say, our own natural way of dealing with situations. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was how it
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's like the wisdom of man versus the wisdom of God.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so rightly so, you know, when I talk about wisdom, I base it on biblical principles.
Hmm.
But what we need to understand here is that life is spiritual, okay? Life is spiritual. And I say that because anything that manifests in the natural has its root in the spirit, whether it's
Yeah.
in the demonic world or
Yeah.
in the you know the world of God. And so you find that when we talk about wisdom, there is wisdom that is rooted in man's um, experiences, and also it can be the wisdom that people will give you by consulting the stars, you know, consulting all these things, the mediums. But when you talk about the wisdom of God, the difference is that that wisdom from the natural realm is limited. There comes a time when you have exhausted everything. And if you ask people that want to give up on life, they will tell you, woman of
Mm.
God, I have tried everything and it's
Everything.
not working. I
Yeah.
have tried everything and it's not working. And it's at that point that I pick it up and say, when all else has
Mm.
failed, here is something that is beyond the natural. Here is something that is beyond you. Here is wisdom that you don't have to engineer or, you know, or um, control. Here
Mm.
is wisdom that transcends your human understanding.
Yeah.
And it's a wisdom that you may not grasp in the natural, but in the spiritual realm, because life is spiritual. When
Yeah.
that wisdom is engaged,
Mm.
it manifests in the natural, and
Yeah.
sometimes we call it a miracle. but it's the
Hmm.
wisdom of God engaging with the natural and bringing solutions that we call a miracle. And so when you talk about the wisdom of God, the wisdom of God is a wisdom that cannot be challenged by human limitations. It cannot be challenged by where we stand as human beings, our
Hmm.
standpoint, the way we view things, the way we analyze things. The wisdom of God is beyond that because
Yeah.
it comes from a realm that is outside the realm in which man's wisdom operates.
Hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it really
I
does
hope that
make
makes sense.
sense. It does. It does
So,
make sense.
yeah,
And then I'm going to ask us, can you share some, like I said, we're not going to share all the wisdom keys, people. The book is available if you haven't read it.
yeah.
It's a powerful book. But I want us to just share some of those wisdom keys that, as we in line with resilience. What are some of those wisdom keys that you mentioned even in the book?
Wow, there's 10 chapters in my book.
I
So
know it's you
I'm
look at it
trying
like,
to
okay.
I'm trying to really fish out which wisdom key. Okay, so I've got my book here. And I think some people know my book more than me. So they'll tell me, in
Which
chapter
is
seven, you say this. In chapter six, you say this. In chapter one, you were talking about this. So I have to go back to my own book and say, okay, what chapter is that? But to answer your question, I think the key that really is a foundational key for me when I look at bouncing back from any kind of setback, the wisdom that we need is to first of all put things into perspective. I think I can never emphasize this any
mm,
more than I have in the book. You need to put things in perspective. You see, when you're dealing with a challenging situation, the first instinct that you have as a human being is to
mm,
try and survive.
yeah.
So you
Mm,
react in a way of trying to manage the damage or trying to avoid, the situation from crushing you. But what I invite us to do, and by way of wisdom, is to put things into perspective because
mm,
it's like someone, watching a dog approaching and your
mm.
instinct is this dog is going to mow me down. And so you jump off the bridge because you're trying to avoid the
The
dog.
dog. Mm,
But the dog is just running across
mm,
because it's having its morning exercise and the owner is running behind it. So we can exaggerate situations and we actually respond according to our perception rather than according to reality. And wisdom would have us understand that putting things into perspective is very important. Ask yourself questions like, is this really as bad as I think? Because sometimes I know that something can come to you as a challenge, but when you sleep over it in the
yeah.
morning, you have a fresh perspective. So that is the first wisdom key. Never act or respond to
Mm,
your setback in the moment.
I love that.
Find perspective first and understand what this means to you. And then secondly, what's the extent of what's the cost of this setback? You know, what does it entail? Is it going to bring my whole world crashing down, or it's just going to take away a small aspect of my life that I
Mm,
can rebuild later? And then thirdly, you need to now ask yourself, what is in my power to do? What can I control and what can I not control? There are so many things we can control, and there are also so many things that we can't control.
yeah.
So it's important to understand that when a setback comes to you, and some of these setbacks, women of God, are brought upon us. It's not like you've done something. It's something that
Mm,
you have been drawn into, and now it
life
becomes
throws that at
your
you.
responsibility. Yes,
Yeah.
it's like an illness, or
Mm,
you lose your job, or somebody
mm,
does something that's connected to you. So we have no control over a lot of things. But when we ask ourselves that, Is this thing within my control? And if it's not, then work on strategies of how you're going to let go.
Mm.
Work on strategies on how you're going to let go. And, you know, ask God as well to heal that place that you're disconnecting from. Because you
Mm.
see, when we let things go, it's a disconnection that happens. And if you think of separating a part of your body from your body, you leave a scar there that
Mm.
needs to heal. You leave a
Mm.
wound that needs to heal.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of aspects, but the main thing is to put things into perspective using these 3 steps. Ask yourself, is it that bad?
Right.
Is this thing going to feel the same way when I wake up tomorrow? And then
Yeah.
secondly, ask yourself, is it going to alter my life in a major way? And then thirdly, is it something I can control?
Mm.
I think that's where I can start. Yeah.
Wow. Those are like, and I think even the very first wisdom key you shared is, you're so right, because I found truly in life a lot of times, for example, when you get a piece of bad news, when you hear bad news for the first time, it always seems like so magnified.
Yeah, yeah,
And often, if you would just calm down and kind of not even do anything and just sit on it, then
yeah,
strategies, solutions begin to come. Okay, what can we do about this
yeah,
situation? But at first, it feels like, this is the end. We can't do anything about it. This is the worst case scenario.
yeah,
Different things keep running drama.
yeah,
So I love the way you said, just kind of ask yourself, it's almost you looking and say, okay, is it as bad as I think it is? Because often when you sleep over it and you wake up the next morning, sometimes God has even given you a way to handle that situation.
yeah,
And sometimes He
yeah,
opens our eyes to see that it's not as bad as we thought it was. Even if it's things that are like, worst case scenario, like maybe terminal illnesses, you
yeah,
begin to see that, okay, there's a way around. Okay, you know what? Fine, they've given me the worst case scenario. I've heard this report. Well, are there things I can begin to do? Well, there's just always a way around it when you sleep on it. So
yeah.
I love that wisdom key. And even the other two that you shared are like, wow. So I really do like the way you shared those, because and I also think that brings into perspective talking about resilience, because resilience really is, this situation is upon me, but how am I going to handle it? Am I going to
Mm,
give up? And I think I want to talk a little bit about that. Am I going to give
mm,
up, or am I going to say, no, I'm not ready to give up?
mm,
How bad
mm,
can it get for us to say, I'm done?
mm,
I'm done with this situation.
mm, mm. It's I always tell people quitting is not an option, because for as long as you have breath in your nostrils, the sun will still
Hmm,
shine again tomorrow morning. You will
that's
wake
true.
up and the
That's
day is
true.
going to start again. And when you actually remind yourself that this is just one day, this is
Yeah.
just one day and it's unique among all the days I'll ever live on this earth.
Hmm,
It won't always be like this.
yeah.
So let me give myself a chance and get into
Hmm,
tomorrow and see how I feel about it. Because, woman of God, most of the things that we battle with are just the way we feel about them.
hmm.
And feelings come and go.
Yeah. They
Today I
change
can feel,
overnight.
oh, exactly. So today I can feel, oh my gosh, this is beyond me. I can
Hmm,
never get over this. I can never handle this. But tomorrow I might wake up and say, okay, let me pray about this and see what God is saying. Because I'm telling you, when challenges come, the
hmm.
first instinct is not to pray. No one will say that in the moment I thought, let me pray. You
Hmm.
want to analyze, because your brain now begins to receive these messages and it's
Yeah.
trying to protect you.
Hmm.
It's wired to protect you. So you go into thinking and trying to figure out how you're going to get out. So when you talk about when is it too much that you give up?
Hmm.
every person have their own breaking point, and that doesn't mean that you
Mm.
should actually break. I think what we need to allow ourselves to do is to um, learn and understand our triggers. And I talk about that in the book as well. Understand your triggers. Know when you're going to reach that point that you've reached before, where you've really lost yourself and you've thought, who was that
Mm.
person? That's unlike me to
Mm.
give up. That's unlike me to
Mm.
burst out in anger. So when you know your triggers and you understand that a situation is pushing you, a setback is pushing you to the point of breaking, you need to have strategies, okay,
Yeah.
of how to pull yourself back. So, what does that entail? It simply means that you need to surround yourself with a community of people
Mm. I love
that
that.
can speak into your life.
Yeah.
That can speak into your life. Now, I know that in the initial stages of setbacks, you don't hear anyone. And that's why I say the first step is to self introspect, try to understand what it means to go through what you're going through. How is it impacting you before you can actually reach out and say, I think this thing is beyond me. Because people need to understand how to help you. Okay. Because many people have tried to help in vain because a person has not defined how
Mm.
they want to be helped. Because it's one thing to need help, but the how you want to be helped is another thing.
Mm.
And people, when I ask people, as a coach, someone comes to you and say, "Oh, I feel like I can't go beyond this point." And then you ask them, "So how do you think you can do this?" Sometimes they feel like, "Oh, I came to you for help and you're
I
asking me
don't know.
questions."
That's why I'm here.
But yeah, but you
Mm.
see, what we are trying to do there
Mm.
is to help the person own
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah.
And as they own the situation, they begin to own the solution, because the
Yeah.
best solution always lies with the person that's going
Person.
through this.
Yeah.
And our job is to help them not go too far to the breaking point, but to also remind them that they're fully empowered to actually bounce back stronger,
Yeah.
because everything that we need is within us, and it's
Mm.
God has wired us in a way that we have gifts, we have talents, we also
Yeah.
have the wisdom that comes from
Yeah.
him as believers. And so when crisis comes, we forget. Our spirit man forgets, our physical man forgets, our
Mm.
minds forget.
Yeah.
And we need those people to actually push the button. It's almost like a reset button, to push that reset button and remind you that, hey, you can pray about this, you can
Yeah.
let go of this, or you can wait before dealing with this. Someone that just brings that, perspective and
Yeah.
wisdom of how to approach your setback. So I know that a lot of people would rather quit than deal with something. And I
Mm.
just want to touch a little bit on that, woman of God, in our conversation, because I believe that most of the times when we say, I can't do this, it's too embarrassing, it's too much, it's usually related to how people view us. What will people
Mm.
think? What will people think if I do this? What will people
Yeah.
think if they hear that this is how I've responded to this issue? And I
Yeah.
talk about a concept called self-preservation.
Mm.
I had a mentor. She's going to be with the Lord. She was the first woman, I write about her I acknowledge her in my book, that ever said to me, Diana, you have so much that God has put in you.
Mm.
You are gifted. You carry so much that the world needs to receive.
Mm.
You carry, someone's deliverance. You carry someone's breakthrough.
Mm.
But you need to set yourself free
Mm.
from self-preservation. So I thought, what is self-preservation? It was my first time to hear about that word. What is self-preservation? And then she explained to me, she said, you see, when we do things, even as believers, when we are serving in the ministry, or maybe it's in at work, you're in the secular world, we are always aware of how people view us. We are
Yeah.
always conscious of what people are thinking about the
Mm-hmm.
quality of our work, how we show up, and all those things that matter to people. We are always conscious of that. And that in itself
Mm.
makes us want to preserve a certain image about ourselves. The way we show up. We want people to always see us as Coach Dee. We always want people to see us as Pastor D. We always want to preserve that. And so in doing that, even our actions now, we begin to wire them towards aligning with what people expect to see. And
Mm.
what we are doing when we do that, we are preserving ourselves from being seen in bad light or our weaknesses being seen, basically from being seen as human. And so when
Yeah.
she said to me, deal with self-preservation, I tell you, woman of God, that was the most liberating thing I
Also,
have
it
ever
liberated
heard.
you.
Oh my gosh. I just said, this is where the key lies. And so
Mm.
I am saying today, as we talk about resilience, that resilience starts when you let go of self preservation.
Mm.
That's when your authentic self comes forward and you begin to deal with things and reality in a way that brings lasting solutions. Because if you're solving a problem, and you're solving a problem to preserve an artificial image of yourself, you will still have those inherent issues within you because you fixed the
Y-
image, but
But you
the
haven't fixed
self in
you.
you is still struggling. Yes, it's still struggling. So it's very important to really, really understand that we are humans we are creatures of control. We want to be in control of what happens to us, what people do, but in a real world, that's not possible. We only have control over ourselves, how we
Yeah.
respond to things. And, to understand that we don't owe anyone anything.
Yeah.
We don't owe anyone anything
Mm.
in terms of who we show up as, but we owe everything to ourselves and to the God who has sent us to do his will here on earth.
Mm.
I think that's really, really
Wow,
important.
that is so powerful. That reminded me. Yesterday, I was I was looking through my pictures, and I came across this picture that I took at one of the, and I can't even remember what museum it was when I came to New Zealand, and the quote on the wall said, it was a quote by I think Oscar Wilde that said something like, "Be you, because everyone else is taking something." In that line. I can't remember exactly how it was framed, but he said something. And but I took a picture beside the quote, and I just saw yesterday, and just reminding me. Do you know how many people are preserving the artificial image, the artificial self, and wanting everybody to see them in that light? And so what
Mm,
you just said now, to say that is that what you said now is liberating. Like, you know what? It's okay to just be who God has created you to be. You don't even need
mm,
to preserve that person you want people to see. Like, why would I want
yeah.
people to see me in my rights, like who I am? Fine, it might not be what people want
Mm,
to see, especially in the world that we live in now, but I would have peace of mind. I would be free to be
mm,
who God wants me to be. I will be able to minister to the people that, because another thing, another quote that came to my mind was, someone said, sometimes people are looking for you, but they can't find you because you've changed who God created you to be. It's almost
wow.
like what you do at
Wow.
work.
Mm,
They can't find
wow.
you, like,
That's
because
powerful.
you've
Yeah.
changed who. So now they're like, and that reminds me of a joke that I heard. Actually, it's in line with what you do. Somebody told a joke and said, I think it was a lady that I think she had a heart attack. She was in the middle age, was rushed to the hospital, and then she was like, God, what's going on? Am I about to die? And God said, no, it's not yet time. You have, maybe he said you have 30 something more years. So he said, okay, that's fine. So as soon as she got better, she said, please, she told the doctors, before I go home, I want to do some plastic surgery, make sure I look good. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do all of that. And as soon as she came out of the hospital, right in front of the hospital, right from the front doors. An ambulance hit her and she died. So she got to heaven and she was so upset. And she was like, God, why that you told me I had 30 something more years? God said, but I didn't recognize you. I didn't know it was you. And that's a joke, boy, just to bring it home. Like every one of us just needs, we don't have
I
just to bring you home. Just show up.
yeah.
Don't show up as people want us to be, but it's for us to
Mm,
show
yeah,
up in line with who God wants us to be. Bringing it back home, because even
exactly.
with bringing it in line with the wisdom of God, He has created each one of us to be unique. We're all special, we're all
Mm,
different. And
mm,
even in our journey of setbacks, I tell people, as much is
yeah.
when we can share our stories with people that they can really identify with who we are, and they can say, okay, like you shared, somebody has gone through this. Guess what? If
Mm,
they share with me,
mm,
I can understand that
mm,
they're not talking at me, but they're just kind of sharing what
yeah.
they've gone through. So I can also draw strength from it.
Mm, mm.
So I can
It's
draw
really
strength from it.
about owning. Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. It's about owning your story. It's like
Oh, that
owning
is
your
so
story.
powerful. Yeah.
Never be ashamed of
Mm-mm.
what happened to you.
Yeah.
Never be ashamed of what you are walking through.
Yeah.
Most of the things are beyond your control. And I really, really want to emphasize that, we label people by what they've gone through and not what God is using that setback
Yeah.
to bring out of them. And we forget that everything that we experience here on earth is meant to shape us for the glory of God.
Mm.
So whether you have gone through, like you share your story, very powerful, a suicide attempt, whether you've gone through a divorce, whether you've gone through an illness that you contracted in a way that is shameful, whatever it is that
Yeah.
your story, your background story is,
Mm.
own it. Because
Yeah.
like we are saying here, woman of God, that's what makes you unique, because
Yeah.
nobody has gone through it the way
Mm.
you have gone
You have
through it.
gone through.
And nobody has come out of it the way you have come out of it. And so your story
Mm.
is so unique. And when you tell your story, somebody somewhere is able to identify with you
Yeah.
and say, that sounds like me. And that's a person that I can go to and they will understand what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we reach out to people, is when we own our
Mm.
own
Yeah.
setbacks and say, yeah, I've gone through this, I've gone through that, and I've gone through that. And I think as society, we need to move away from stigmatizing people based on what they've gone
Oh,
through,
let's
and
amplify
and
that.
and using that woman of God to decide whether you're going to listen to this person or not. It's
Mm.
like, oh, I'm not going to listen to her podcast because this happened to her.
Yeah.
But the wisdom that came out of her experience is what you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
what you're going through. And this
Yeah.
is how the enemy robs people of
Mm.
wisdom and help. We talk
Yeah.
about destiny helpers. We are
Yeah.
looking up to the hills, and our help is not coming from the hills.
Mm.
Our destiny helper, God is saying, I'm going to show you who your destiny helper is. And when God brings this person, it's like
Mm.
the
They
servant
don't
girl.
look like.
Exactly. The servant girl who told Naaman to go and dip himself in the Jordan River. In this day and age,
How
you'll be
dare
told,
you? Like.
how dare you tell the man of God to do that? Who do you think you are? But
Mm.
we
Yeah.
miss the
Mm.
deliverance
Mm.
of God. We miss the direction of God simply
Yeah.
because we have this preconceived idea of
Yeah.
how our help should look. And
Yeah.
so people have powerful stories out there, and when I started Rise and Thrive, a program that I do, my goal is to draw those people from the back to the front to begin to tell their stories so
Stories.
that someone can actually understand that, oh, It's actually normal to go through what I'm going through. I'm
Yeah.
not the only one who's going through it. We need
Mm.
to normalize going through setbacks.
Yeah.
And I think for far too long we have felt like people who have no problems are the ones who are doing well. Or for you to
Yeah.
be doing well, you have to portray a picture of not having struggled
Mm.
with anything. But I love how now things are shifting towards
Yeah.
vulnerability because people
Mm.
are demanding more of authenticity.
Yeah.
As technology is evolving, people want to see you. Who are you? Who is
Especially
Diana?
younger generation. They are so
Mm,
big on seeing the real you. They
mm.
don't want you telling them no
Oh,
theories. They
yeah.
want the real thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. They want to see, they want to know that you struggle as well. And they
Yeah.
want to know, I think of my kids. My kids are just amazing. I'm not saying that because they are mine, but they are really amazing. They, I allow them to challenge me on things.
Hmm.
They have that freedom. And I come from Zambia originally,
Hmm.
and having that African background where we were raised to think or to believe that a child ought to just be seen and not be
Yeah, not
heard. There was a
heard.
saying, yeah. Whenever you're among, you don't have a voice. You can't
Yeah.
question things.
Mm.
But when we are looking at the generations now and living in the Western world,
Mm.
I think you gain this wisdom that reminds you that these children have have needs. They also
Yeah.
have feelings. They
Yeah.
also have rights, and they need to be heard, and they need to be respected as well.
Mm.
Um, and so we come up with this parenting style that now gives the child that voice to speak and say what their needs are and what their preferences are, and also to
Mm.
decline certain things that they
Yeah.
are not comfortable with. And
Mm.
I think when you come to a point where you empower your children to be their authentic self, you are launching into society a breed of
Mm.
adults that will stand up for what they believe and
Yeah.
not fear to challenge the things that come up against their beliefs.
Hmm.
I think it's really, really important.
Wow.
It's really
Wow.
important.
Wow. Woo! We've shared a lot. You've shared. Thank you for all the nuggets that you shared. Like I can go on and on. I have more questions. I'm like, okay, no, no, no. You know what? I want to encourage everyone to go grab, and I want you to tell us, Lady, let's know where we can get your book. Let's know where we can get your book, and then we'll talk
Mm,
about some of the
mm,
things that you're doing that people can get involved in. So let's just kind of give us give us more information about that.
mm. Okay, so my book is called Bounce Back Stronger. I've got a copy here. It looks like this:
It's a
Wisdom
beautiful
Keys
book.
for Resilience in Times of Setback. And I have received a lot of positive feedback about this book. There's still people ordering, people wanting to buy. So you can get it on Amazon. It's still on Amazon. And if you are in Zambia, you can get it from Christian Voice, Radio Christian Voice in Lusaka. You can also get your copy from Shalom Embassy Church. You
Awesome.
can get it from Bread of Life Church International in Lusaka, the main branch, and also the branches in Kitwe and Chingola. And if I've missed any of those, you can reach out to me, and I'll be able to direct you to where you can get the book. And in New Zealand, you can get it from El Shaddai Worship Center. And here in Australia, you can get it directly by inboxing me. I've got some copies if you want to buy. And everywhere else in the world, just reach out and we will be able to ship it to you. But I encourage you, get the book and just digest and apply and, feed on these wisdom keys that will help you remain resilient in times of setbacks.
Oh wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. And how can people? I know you have the awesome Rise and Thrive podcast. If somebody wants to, okay, I want to be a part of, I want to find out more about what you do and all of that. How can people connect with you as well?
Okay. So I am on Instagram. I forget my handle. I think it's D Fumbilwa.
I'll put it in the show notes.
I am on Instagram, and if you go to, there's a link in my bio that connects you to all my platforms, my YouTube channel, my Rise and Thrive podcast, which you can get from everywhere where podcasts are done, and you can also reach out to me if you want to join our training, which we run every year. And so just go to Instagram, and then if you go to the link in my bio, you will find
Everything
all
is
the
there.
links there. Everything is there. I
Awesome.
would really love to connect with you.
Wow. So we'll have you share your last words as we bring this, as we wrap this up, bring this to an end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, woman of God, for this opportunity. I've enjoyed the conversation and just drawing wisdom from you. I want to end by, sharing a scripture that is so dear to my heart, and very something that we learned from Sunday school. We could quote it from Sunday school, but I'm going to read it because I just want to highlight a few things. And this is what has helped me remain resilient myself in times of setback. So Jeremiah 29 and verse 11 down to 14 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Verse 14, "I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity." Beloved, setbacks are like a form of captivity, and God is inviting us to call upon him. He says, "Seek me with all your heart." When all else has failed, when all the wisdom keys in this book have failed, and you understand that beyond this, there's a God who can give you wisdom that is tailored to your setback. Because, like I said, there's 10 chapters in there. Maybe there's something in there that is missing that you need. Understand that there's a God who has all resources flowing available for your setback. And so when we call upon his name, he says that he will bring us back from captivity. He will draw us back from the setbacks that we are going through. And so he starts by saying, "I know the plans that I have for you." So, beloved, I invite you, look for what plan God has for you. What is God's plan for your life? If you don't know what it is, begin to pray that God will show you, or talk to your pastor, talk to somebody that is spiritually mature, and begin to discover what is God's plan for your life. What is your purpose here on earth? And just know that whenever you're going through a setback, God's plans are not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. So when setbacks come, just know that that's temporary, because that's not meant to kill you. That's meant to just bring you back to that point where you're able to seek the Lord and to ask him to bring you back from captivity. I tell you, you need to understand that setbacks come to everyone, and they come unannounced. And so you need to be equipped with a strong relationship with God and a prayer life that can connect you to heaven, but also surround yourself with a community that will encourage you to keep going and to carry you when you need to be carried, because there will be those moments when you can't stand up for yourself. So I will end with this. I think it's been
Oh wow.
amazing. Resilience is a very wide topic. And being resilient, let me finish by saying this. Being resilient is not just about pushing, because when we think
Mm,
I'm being resilient, so I'm pushing back myself into normalcy. Resilient is an all-rounder. Resilience is an all-rounder. It entails, boundaries. You need to build boundaries around your life so that you can work on what is happening in your life. But I want to say to you that sometimes resilience is about walking away from what doesn't serve you.
mm.
Sometimes we think resilience is to
That's a
push
powerful
things and
one.
make them work,
Yeah.
force things to work, then you're being resilient. Resilient. What you're being is not resilient. You're just being stubborn.
Mm.
Resilience flows through wisdom. So if wisdom tells you this situation, this place, this arrangement no longer serves me, part of resilience is having the wisdom to disconnect from what
Mm.
um, no longer serves you. So I want to really qualify that, because sometimes we think resilience is to just endure and
Yeah.
endure. But
Yeah.
God might be saying, your season in this city is over. You need to move on to this next level. Or maybe in this job, your season is over and you keep being
Mm.
resilient and being resistant. But God is saying being resilient is actually recognizing that this place now is a dry brook and I need to
I
move
need
on
to
and dig
move.
another well.
Yeah. Wow. What a powerful way to end that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Pastor
Thank you.
D, Lady D, Coach D. You know when you're multidimensional, she's all wrapped up. Author, coach, pastor, there's all in there. Thank you so much for being such a blessing to us. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. And I'm sure I'm gonna have you back.
Uh,
I'm sure I'm gonna
it'll
have
be
you
my
back.
honor.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you, viewers, for listening, for watching. I'll be back again next time with another wonderful episode. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.